Never miss an episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Emmet Kennedy.
Welcome to a special episode of the Final Furlong podcast as we preview the 150th running of the Preakness Stakes in Pimlico. You can see it live on this side of the pond on Sky Sports Racing, a minute past 12 on Saturday night. We're going to be joined by two of my favourite American pundits. We had Howard Kravitz from the HHH Racing Podcast, who gave us a Breeders' Cup cheat sheet, which was chef's kiss. It was gold content. These boys work with Howard. Howard's going to be back on the show next week, giving us the latest rundown on the current state of play of American dirt racing, where things now stand after the Kentucky Derby, and whoever it is that wins the Preakness Stakes. But these are the boys who will mark your card, and they are two of the best pundits I've worked with, particularly for stateside. They are savvy, they are sharp, they're opinionated. They're not afraid to tell you exactly what they think. Welcome, Ryan. Welcome, Charlie. You're very welcome to the Final Furlong podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Hey, it's not 3 a.m. this time, so I have a ton more energy. We'll be locked in. Obviously, last time the three of us were sharing a screen, we were on hour 18 of a show, just going hard. So no, it's good to be back in the middle of the day when I'm awake. Yeah,
for those who don't know, it was the New York Racing Association. It was a live stream on the morning of the Kentucky Derby, morning of the 2,000 guineas for me. It was 11 a.m. my time, so it was fine. It was absolutely full of coffee, still buzzing from Punchestown the day before. These two boys, it's the middle of the night. They've been on for 18 hours, and they still had great energy. I mean, Charlie, you were still going strong. You were also dropping some bombs there about Citizen Bull being the bum you always knew he would be, and then proving it in the Kentucky Derby.
Oh yeah, no, and that I will say this time it's nice that I don't have to watch the sunset and sunrise during the same episode. That's a big twist here. Yeah, I have to say I don't know how I was giving the energy, but yeah, I think around hour 9.5 to 10 hours I was starting to lose it there, and then Ryan here goes, "Oh, Emmett's about to come on, your best friend." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Now you know I have to stay on." And then I just at that point it was just running on pure adrenaline and fumes and just trying to use my strong opinions to keep me awake. But I was telling Ryan, it felt like a script to us at some point because we were going through the same race like a 7th or 8th time with a new guest. We basically already knew our lines at that point. I felt like I was rehearsing something.
Yeah, I think Matthew DeSantis came in wearing a suit, bringing a bit of class to the operation. And at this point, you two boys are just completely delirious. I have no idea what we're talking about in terms of American racing. So he managed to bring a bit of class and a bit of substance to the whole thing. It was good old fun, though. I enjoyed that. It was good crack. It was all for a very good cause as well. The previous time I joined the boys was just after the Breeders' Cup, so it was a review on the HHH Racing Podcast. That was the middle of the night for me. It was 2 a.m. here. So I was starting to get a bit delirious, and it was middle of the night for the guys stateside as well, or at least it was pretty late. But that was fun, and we ended up staying watching the Melbourne Cup afterwards and seeing Robbie Dolan's famous success.
That was my favorite show, I think, of all time. I think that was it. The 24-hour stream in the middle of the night, that's top 3 somewhere, but that post-Breeders' Cup show I had not had. I know we were only live for part of that, and then part of that was off air, I think, towards the end, but that entire section of it was a ton of, right?
We wouldn't have this episode right now if it was still live. All 3 of us would be gone if everything was still live.
There's absolute degenerate gambling on Australian racing with no knowledge of any formula. Just, this horse could go. Good old crack, though.
Hey, okay. That's what I did on the live show. So sometimes it works that way. I saw Chris Lees. I said he's the only trainer I've heard of there, so I blindly bet him during the live stream, and he won. I didn't even look at the race. I was telling a story, and I happened to see he was running, so I bet him.
Trust the system, folks. Trust the system. Oh, okay, these guys do know the form of American racing better than anybody. So let's get our thoughts, or let's get their thoughts, I should say, on the Preakness Stakes. So it's the second leg of the Triple Crown. There will be no Triple Crown winner this year. Sovereignty skips the race, which is a bit controversial. Just on that, first of all, Ryan, the idea that the Mott team and Godolphin have decided to skip it, how does that sit with you?
Yeah, obviously as a racing fan, we always want to see the Derby winner, pursue the Triple Crown. At the same time, I think it's maybe a bit of a wake-up call that maybe the scheduling, isn't quite to the liking of what the breeding is in America anymore. Maybe it's just not that feasible to have a horse run back that quickly. Obviously, Godolphin finally got their first Derby winner with Sovereignty, so they had a clean sweep that weekend. Maybe it's just, hey, we can give them 6 weeks off. We'll see them at the Belmont Stakes. And maybe it was just it's clearly the decision is best for the horse, and that's ultimately what matters most. So while maybe it's a bit of a bummer that we don't see the Derby winner in the Preakness this weekend, at the same time it's good that the connections aren't being overly greedy, and they're just gonna take their time with a horse who has all the talent in the world.
Yeah, I don't really mind it that much, Charlie. I know that there's a lot of people are freaking out about it, and it's disrespectful to the Triple Crown, and then other people are saying, no, you got to change the Triple Crown schedule. I'm not sure if either view prevails, but where's your thinking on it?
Yeah, I mean, I do think down the line, move is to space out the races more to get the better fields. I feel like in general anyway, Ryan, you can add on because I know we're the Americans, what you think. I always feel like the Preakness has clearly become sort of the forgotten leg in the Triple Crown. It sort of seems like obviously the Derby is the race everyone focuses on. Then a lot of the Derby horses come back for the Belmont, or horses who were injured or just didn't have the points wait for the Belmont. It seems like the Preakness is always sort of the leg that gets sort of forgotten and has the weaker field anyway. But I think with the short turnaround, it's even worse. I am not remotely surprised, and Ryan, I'm sure when we talked about it, you didn't seem surprised either, that Sovereignty didn't go into the Preakness. It was actually one of the things I really liked about him heading into the Derby, is I thought they were very, very smart and often with every single start they placed Sovereignty in. That's why he was fairly lightly raced. Every single race they put him in had a purpose. I mean, sometimes it didn't work out the way they expected to, like the Fountain of Youth was supposed to be a warm-up race, and then he happens to win that race, which changed their plans to then in the Florida Derby basically saying we just wanted that for maintenance and to just get him ready for the Derby. But I'm not surprised at all, because running him in the Preakness essentially would have gone against all of their prior starts and, strategy they had in the first place. And I think they believe Sovereignty can have a bright, long career where, we cover a Breeders' Cup down the line and he's running in the Classic or some of these other big races like that. They don't want to rush him.
Yeah. And sorry, Ryan, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree, Charlie. It feels like, they have target dates in mind. Obviously, I'm not in Belmont's head, but I would imagine it's Belmont Stakes, it's Travers, and then probably Breeders' Cup with, maybe a fill race between the Travers and the Breeders' Cup. But it feels like they're, trying to space him out really nicely. They're trying to just ease him along. And he obviously popped huge in the Fountain of Youth. So then that went from okay, that was his big effort to let's dial him back for the Florida Derby. And then, but when Belmont has a target date in mind, he's probably the best trainer in the country where he can make that horse run their best effort on that given day that they're targeting for.
And given he's Godolphin, he's almost certainly going to be running in the Dubai World Cup next year as well, and possibly the Saudi Cup really bottomed the two horses that ran in it, particularly for Forever Young, but also Romantic Warrior. They were just not the same at all in Maidan. But if there's enough of a gap between the two, it was Ramadan this year, so the Dubai World Cup was earlier, then you'd imagine he's going to be lining up in those races too. And that's probably in their head as well. You don't want to crush him now or bottom him out by doing this. That being said, the connections of the runner-up, and we were being told, we were talking about it that morning, that it's just a matter of journalism's only got to turn up. That's what you were being told about the workouts, and he was crushing all of his enemies. It was just a matter of if he could handle the big field, he could win. Well, he did handle the big field, and he did run a big race, but he didn't win. But he is going to roll back out 2 weeks later, and we've seen this before. Horses run big in the Kentucky Derby. They roll out. They're clearly superior to everything they're taking on, but one of the new shooters comes up and pops up. That being said, there's no betting this side of the pond just as of yet, which I'm a little bit surprised by, but I was expecting the morning line to be 2-1 on, 3-5. I saw 6-5. There's no way he's actually going to be 6-5. Is he, Ryan?
I think the morning line we have over here is 8-5. It's probably where you're at. I still don't. Probably even money 6-5 is what I think he goes off at, which to me is going to be too short. 8-5 is a pretty good price. 7-5 I'd be teetering. But you mentioned it. We've seen these horses run huge in the Derby. The Derby tends to more often than not be an outlier race. Journalism, still picture of consistency, 3 triple-digit buyers this year. So he's done everything he's needed to do, and he's been a really professional animal. But there's the chance that race took a lot out of him. It's a 20-horse field. It was in the slop. He's obviously – that is the race that you try the hardest in. So there's a chance it took a little bit of starch out of him. So I think he would be vulnerable coming into this weekend. As much as I want to say, as a West Coast guy, hey, he is the horse to beat, but I think he's beatable. Okay,
Charlie, where do you sit with him?
Yeah, I was stunned to see 8-5 on the morning line, to be honest. I thought it would be shorter. I was expecting 6-5, maybe even money. I think the day of, you're probably getting 4-5 to 6-5 max. To me, even money and above is value. I agree with everything Ryan said in terms of, that probably took a lot out of him, and it's nothing against him. I think it took a lot out of Sovereignty. That's why he's not here. I think it takes a lot out of any horse that does any running in the Derby. But the reality is here for me, it's a much easier field. A lot of, horses that we were supposed to see potentially in this race aren't here. I know Sandman, and we'll get through the rest of the field later, is there, but even though I'm big on Sandman, I don't think he's on journalism's level. Baeza not coming here is big. Obviously, Sovereignty not coming here is big. But even horses that didn't end up running in this race that couldn't get there. Grande wasn't able to get healthy enough to run here. Rodriguez was supposed to be a major threat here, and we'll get to the Bafferts later, but it looks like all of Baffert's 18 horses weren't able to make the trip. I think journalism for me was a complete play against in the Derby. I had him. I thought he was talented, but obviously Ryan's the West Coast guy. I'm not. For me, I just had concerns about, he was running in small fields. How really good is the Cali racing? We didn't know at that time. How would he take to the slop? How would he take to being around 20 horses? And that race I thought was really formful. I think a lot of people would agree that on paper, Sovereignty, Journalism, and if Baeza kept building, were probably the top 3 horses on paper, and they ran 1, 2, 3. I just think if Journalism sticks to anywhere near his form, he's going to be very overwhelming for the rest of this field.
Okay, so Charlie's very much with him as things stand. Ryan, you want to take him on. The question then is, who are you going to take him on with?
So, to me, looking at the form, it looks like Derby maybe came back pretty high for a lot of those runners, at least in the top. If you compare it to time form, if I'm trying to beat Journalism, and I am, I'm going to have to go with Clever again. Steve Asmussen trains this runner by American Pharoah, who obviously won the Triple Crown 10 years ago, but comes in off a 101 Bayard at Oaklawn Park, was able to get to the lead in both of his wins. So perhaps that's going to be to his disadvantage, seeing as there is a ton of pace in here and it should set up for Journalism. I'm just kind of thinking on the lines of Asmussen has been targeting this race since the Hot Spring Stakes at Oaklawn Park, which I believe was a winner near in for the Preakness, but I'm not positive. But either way, it feels like this is another kind of target date for this trainer, the same way Mott and targeted the Derby with Sovereignty. It feels like Steve Asmussen, Winchell Thoroughbreds have targeted this race for Clever again. So it feels like he's going to run his top effort. And if you go off time form figures, he ran a faster race last time out than Journalism did in the Derby, given they were at 2 different distances. Clever again was on a fast surface, Journalism on a sloppy. So there's variables and whatnot, but I believe looking at the weather, Pimlico this weekend should be fast and firm, maybe fast and good. I going to clear up by Saturday. So I would want to take Clever again, just kind of outside speed, could get the stalking trip. And it might be one of those where Journalism makes his run, but he might just have might not have enough in the tank, in that last 16th of a mile with how much the Derby takes out of these horses.
Shout out to Cork Racecourse Mallow. If a son of a Group 3 winner in Cork can go and win an American Triple Crown race, the Group 1 Preakness, they are going to lose their minds over there. By American Pharoah out of Aidan O'Brien's flattering, a Galileo mare. We're told so many times, these Galileo mares don't go into the dirt. This one does. By American Pharoah, obviously the Triple Crown hero, Grand Slam winner. He went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic as well and is becoming... What's the story with him over there? He's kind of mixed here. I still think he's got a big play with a filly called Dreamy, and there's some other nice horses that he has as well, but he hasn't caught fire in the way that Justify has.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point. It varies how these horses end up getting seen here. Some of them end up getting, sort of overbet and others don't. But I still think they seem to be taken here pretty well. And I did just want to add on Clever again, because I know I did kind of take the angle of, Journalism can't quote unquote be beat, but I did I wrote in some notes I've ready for each of these horses. And I do sort of think that Clever again, like if someone does beat Journalism, I agree with Ryan. I think it would be this one. For me, the only 2 on pure ability that really compete with them are Clever again and Sandman. And my concerns are for Sandman having too much to do and this being a very quick turnaround, as well as that the connections when I initially were reading reports had indicated that they were pointing towards the Belmont, and now they switched here. And I don't really know why. I would love to know, besides from the fact that this field's going to be much weaker. It doesn't make much sense to me. But for Clever again, I know Howard has a future on this horse, really likes Clever again here as well. I think both of his efforts, his last 2 were very impressive. Obviously, also to make that stretch out after, debuting at 4.5 against Dreamway, nobody really knew all this horse would take, but the bettors certainly thought they did, as he was, bet down to favoritism in that race and then bet down to, just over $1 last time out. I think if he can get the distance and, Hosing navigates the right trip, he's very tough here. The other thing, Ryan, and I'm curious if you kid on this as well, that was a bit surprising and disappointing to me as someone who, would like to see Sandman figure it out, is that Jose Ortiz chose Clever again here.
Yeah, the jockey musical chairs is always a little interesting. Not karaoke. Jockey musical chairs. I think it was just a matter of Jose was committed to this horse. My guess is that I don't really have a guess other than just the connections are probably stronger with Asmussen and Winchell, that he rides for a lot more than he does for DJ Stable. Mark Cassidy, and all the other ownership partners there. That'd be my only guess, is that he was like, this is a prior commitment type of thing. I don't know that I'd read into it too much more than that. But I do think that the pace scenario is going to favor Clever again more than it's going to favor Sandman, even though there's a decent amount of pace in here.
Was it Tistastic Coolmore had running in the Kentucky Derby?
Yes.
So was it always the plan for Clever again to come here and skip the Kentucky Derby?
I would imagine so. I mean, I'm not positive, but I would imagine that was the plan.
I would say it has to be based off of just when he ran, because he didn't come back until February. That was often a near year layoff. The reality is then they would have had to rush that into a prep. And I don't think Asmussen is one of those trainers. I feel like the reason he's been, arguably the most successful trainer in the U.S. is because he doesn't like to rush his horses. He's similar in a way, I would say, to Bill Mott to an extent, where he likes to place his horses in the right spot. I just think trying to rush Clever again was just not going to be realistic. And I also just think pace scenario-wise, on paper, it looked a lot better for a horse like Tistastic to push towards a race like that than it would for Clever again. And also just I feel like for a third career start to have to go into a field as big as the Derby would have just been asking a lot.
Well, I thought I was going to be walking into a betting shop just blindly backing journalism and taking 6-5. Thank you very much. That'll do. And then Ryan comes along with this very positive mention for Clever again. You then reveal that Howard's got the horse back. Charlie, you give him a really big mention too. Should I just be switching to the Coolmore horse and the blind allegiance for Team Ireland here? Because we're going to claim this one. I can guarantee we will. But also, what kind of price are we looking at, and what kind of price is the cutoff for him?
So I think the morning line of 5-1 is very accurate. I think you'll get every bit of that. One, because journalism's going to take a lot of money. Sandman is going to take a lot of money, even though, Charlie, you know my feelings on Sandman. We don't need to go back into that. But I think there's going to be a lot of horses that take a lot of money in here. Journalism, very deserving. She's very deserving favorite. He could very much win, but I'm going to play Clever again on top, and I'll play the exacto with journalism to Clever again as of sorts. But I mean, I'm struggling to find any other logical outcomes as I look through the past performances here of these runners.
Okay, so two dominant at the top for you, Clever again and journalism.
Yeah.
Okay, Charlie.
Definitely.
Your view, first of all, on Sandman, because you haven't got to express this in the final furlong. You were very big on him for the Kentucky Derby. First of all, what did you make of the run in the end, and do you like him in this spot?
Yeah, so again, I know I've talked about it at length on my podcast and on Ryan's show I went on, but for those who don't know, and then placed back in late November, early December at 125-1 to win the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, didn't end up working out. Good news was I did give out Sovereignty on the show and play him heavily as my main one horse to hedge my Sandman bet with, so that worked out. But look, it would have been nice to see him win there. The concerns I had highlighted were that he is a bit of a green horse. He is, a little bit of a more on the immature side and trying to still figure things out. He was going to have to come from the very back. He did have struggles in the past at Churchill, as well as that we've never seen him on the slop. So I have concerns. I'd also talked about how if I was unbiased and didn't have a future on him, I'd say fair odds going into the Derby on him were probably 10-1 before the scratches and probably 8-1 with the scratches. I said to anyone who would listen that with the money he was taking, he was being wildly overbet. As much as I like him, there were just too many question marks to take him at that price. In terms of the run, I don't think there was anything I was really surprised with. I said he'd probably be third to last or second to last. He was 18th, so he was third to last as I expected. I figured like heading for home, he'd probably be somewhere in the range of around 11th or 12th if I was going to have a chance. And I think he was like 14th or 15th, so I knew I was kind of in trouble. And then he turned for home right next to Final Gambit. But I saw he was initially responding. I'd say there was about a second and a half where I thought I had a chance for him to at least get up for a piece. And then now he wasn't really responding to the whip well, which has been an issue of his in the past. He got caught out very wide, which I knew would happen, and then sort of just had natural ability, just passed tiring horses and got up for seventh, but never really showed his best. I think he's a horse that has a very bright future down the line. I'm not saying like he'll necessarily, win the Breeders' Cup Classic or anything necessarily, but I do think that's where he'll be at his best. I do think he's a horse where when he gets to, later his 3-year-old season is where I think even Ryan, who's not the biggest fan of Sandman, would agree. When he gets older and gets, to his late 3-year-old season, his 4-year-old season, that's when we might see the best of Sandman. He's just going to take time. Now in this race, I do think there is setup, but I don't think the cutback is going to help him. I don't know if there's quite enough setup or that, with it being a smaller field, that the pace could be as contested as he needs. I think if it melts down, he has a massive chance to win in this race. Because again, we don't know if journalism will fire to his best. We don't know how much that took out of him. And who knows, because we didn't really get to see the best of Sandman because Jose Ortiz kind of knew turning for home, they didn't have it. Maybe he did save a little more going into this one, and that's why they pointed him here. I'd love to know that from the connections. For me, I kind of ABC'd this race. For me, him and Clever again are my two Bs, but I feel much stronger about Clever again in terms of chances of winning. And then on your question for odds, Clever again, the lowest I would absolutely take would be 4-1 on him. I'd probably mainly play journalism and then, play some reverses though with Clever again over journalism to hedge. And then with Sandman, I'd say the lowest I'd probably take is probably 9-2, 5-1. But I feel better about getting the odds on Clever again than I do on Sandman.
Yeah, and Sandman has the TikTok influencer whose name has escaped me. But
Griffin Johnson.
Griffin Johnson.
Yeah, so he had a massive impact, obviously, on the Kentucky Derby betting. And that's going to be repeated again because this is obviously national television coverage in America, and that guy's become a social media superstar.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
And also, I was also, he's also, a big, beautiful gray, which people love. Also with Sandman, with the band Metallica, like that stuff's just not going to go away. And it's wild to me seeing how many people all over social media that know nothing about horse racing, all of a sudden we're just blindly attached and loving Sandman because of the impact Griffin Johnson. I will say, I actually do think it's in a positive way. I feel like a lot of the Derby has been influencers in a negative way where they're just there, look nice and they get asked, interviewed and they don't know a thing about what's going on. And it's like, well, this is just hurting the sport. Why you let them there? But he filmed plenty of cool behind the scenes content of Sandman working out, of him, giving Sandman his bath, giving him treats, giving some inside stuff that other people who aren't get to see. So I do think influencers taking his path of actually showing a passion for the horse and giving people insight into what it actually looks like behind the scenes can make a really good impact for the sport.
Yeah, 100%. I can completely echo that. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it too, Ryan. But I really appreciated the fact that he's gone on TikTok and said this is the best sport in the world, and then goes on NBC and says the exact same thing. He's not there just for, oh, look at me, I'm having a great time with the races, and then heads off somewhere else. He's really trying to support the sport as much as possible.
He really is. You guys have both said he's not that influencer that's, paid to come to the track that gets this and post, fake content of just hey, I have this champagne, let's watch horses run around. He's he's involved, loves it. You can tell. After the Derby, he posted a really kind of emotional video of him just detailing how much he loves this horse and loved the experience and everything. That's all great for the sport. So we need more of that. He's clearly passionate about it. I love it. Hopefully I get to meet him out there because ABR obviously did the segment to promote him and everything as we got led up to the Derby. So maybe he'll be on the show this weekend. I have no actual idea, but I think that'd be cool because again, he's a voice that's really good for the sport. Young guy, and he loves it, and he has a huge following on social media. So it could really only do good for us.
Yeah, and that's the future. The future of broadcasting is social media because don't know if you've noticed, boys, but broadcast television is dying, and so is the print media industry. So you can't really get away from that. It's all going to TikTok. Just a couple of other horses to ask you about before we wrap up. American Promise. There was a bit of talk about him for the legend Dwayne Lucas. Obviously, he's a Justify, so that makes him somewhat interesting over here as well, given the City of Troy connection. Complete no-show, though, in the Kentucky Derby. Is there any reason why this horse would turn it around in the Preakness? Ryan first.
Definitely. He was nowhere in the Derby because that horse that broke from the one post did his best Bayern impression and just took a straight right and took out 4 horses. I cannot believe that the jockey on board has not been fined yet. Junior Alvarado gets fined for using the whip one too many times. That's an issue for another day. But American Promise lost all chance at the start after he was cut off with the horse with Citizen Bull taking a hard right. Then he gets over to the rail. There were 2 horses that came over again to try and get position on the rail. I believe one was Burnham Square, and I forget the other horse, but they cut him off again. He took a bit of a weird stat. He just basically lost all chance. He's a horse that needs to be forward. He got buried on the rail in the first 200 yards. Absolutely right here, we can expect a much better effort, maybe going back to the Virginia Derby effort. He's a runner where we might see them fly out of the gate and get the lead similar to Seize the Gray last year. I just think that there's going to be a ton of early pace. He's one of those that's a candidate of, if he gets sent to the lead, we might see a blistering early pace with goal-oriented on the rail, American Promise, Clever again. I don't know what Heart of Honor is going to do. I wanted to ask you about that runner as that one ships in from kind of your neck of the woods after running in the UAE Derby. But there's just a ton of early pace. So if he sends like a Banshee out of the gate, which I believe he will, it's going to be absolutely.
Yeah, he did blow the start in Maidan a couple of starts back for Safi, but I imagine she's going to be handy enough. I think that's the what I was picking up on anyway. I'm not entirely certain. He is a fascinating runner. Just what is your thoughts on him, Charlie? He brings the UAE Derby form into the race. Obviously, he's an AP Indy, so he's properly bred for this out of a Scat Daddy mare. He's trained by Jamie Osborne, who's no stranger to success with dirt success as well, with Toast of New York back in the day. But his daughter on board, and she has become one of the best jockeys in the UK in a very, very short space of time. So it's exciting in that aspect. But what's the thought about him over at stateside?
Yeah, look, I respect the connections taking this chance and sending this horse here. I love it. I'm not really sure. To be honest, when Noah and I had to draft it on fantasy drafted Meyer Daytona, we were not thrilled about it because we didn't think the UAE Derby was very strong. The favorite in that race, Flood Zone, who came over from America, is a horse I know very well from Gulfstream, who I love the story of, and I love that he made me a lot of money when I bet him at a long shot twice, but I never thought was all that good. So when he went off as the favorite, I kind of thought, wow, then, who is in here? And then it was a very exciting finish. Heart of Honor, I think the name is perfect because, man, was he game in that race and fought like hell, and it looked like he easily could have, faded back for third and fourth. The pace scenario makes me a little worried, as well as, Meyer Daytona did not do any running at all, didn't lift a hoof in that race. So this could just be too big of a step up. But I respect that they're going for it anyway. Could he potentially surprise and get a piece at a massive price? Because I think you'll get every bit of that, 12-1 and probably higher. Absolutely. I'm just not sure with others that are going to send here, especially because I just think there's other speeders inside he's going to have to fight with. And then briefly on American Promise, look, this was a horse that I absolutely ripped on, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong. Luckily, this was one of the ones I had a strong opinion on, similar to Citizen Bull, that I was absolutely. Look, I think he got unlucky in certain ways, like Ryan said. Absolutely, I'm not going to act like he was just flat out as bad as he ran. I just have concerns. I get he's getting a slight cutback. I get that there's big expectations. He's a big horse out of Justify. They paid a pretty penny for him. My concerns were visually and in the efforts he's had. He's never really done anything for me. I know he ran huge in the Virginia Derby, but he didn't beat anything. Render Judgment ran second and went on to do no running in the Derby, which was, a foregone conclusion. And, I know we talk about Sandman getting overbet in this race, but I don't know if there was a more overbet horse in this field than American Promise. Going off at 12-1 was shocking to me. If I had set fair odds, I probably would have had, I think I had him somewhere around 40 or 45-1 on my fair odds. So that was shocking to me. That being said, I think he can run better here. But with the pace scenario, with just, in my opinion, I don't think the ability is there. I think he'll be overbet for sure. I don't think he'll get 15-1. I think he'll be closer to 10-1 here. I'd say my fair odds here are probably around 17, 18-1 in this spot. I think he has a better shot than the Derby for sure. I just think there's other speed. I don't think he's good enough. And I think, like Ryan said, his only shot is to get to the lead, but I don't think he's going to be able to set the fractions that sees the Grace set. And one other, I guess there were a couple others I wanted to touch on here briefly. The one I wanted to he'll know way more than me as the West Coast guy, because you brought him up, and it was goal-oriented, because I know that's another sort of polarizing horse being the one Baffert here.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Obviously debuted at Santa Anita in early April, and I mean that was a wow performance. That horse was uncomfortable early. It won in the exact opposite way that you see Baffert's win. Normally you see him go wire to wire. This one was uncomfortable, was green, was climbing, then kind of switched to the outside, got his head right, and finished off really nicely. It was a very live race. The second place finisher came out to romp at Aqueduct a couple weeks later, maybe a week ago. Sierra Silver just ran a good second to a Baffert debut horse who finished there. And then Goal Oriented obviously came back on Derby Day in the undercard and ran a really nice race. That race was against the track bias as well, so that's also something I'm going to give a plus to. Of the two-turn races, I believe there were 7 on Derby Day. 5 of the winners came from off the pace. So that would lead me to believe. I know the track kind of changed throughout the day, but that would lead me to believe that that was maybe against some sort of bias there on the track. So the fact that Goal Oriented was able to hang on and pair up that buyer speed figure, it's very logical that we could see a big step forward here. I just don't know if maybe these waters are a little bit too deep. I know that Pratt is going to have him on the lead early. That much I'm certain of.
And what about River Thames? Do we need to talk about this River Thames?
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying, I know we're going from Ryan's on the West Coast, and normally I have it at the bottom, but I didn't think it would make sense for your viewers to have at the bottom, like things say Mr. South Beach, but that is sort of the nickname I've gotten, being that Gulfstream's now my new home track. I think River Thames is really interesting. I mean, to me, he's just the definition of a game horse. He never gives up. I remember watching his debut and was super impressive, one going away, and then did it again going a mile when there were questions about if he would be able to get, that distance right away, knowing how forwardly placed he is. And then in the Fountain of Youth, I mean, he was forward Neo Equus amongst others, and he was dealing with a pretty decent pace, and then had Sovereignty just rolling from the back. And to be honest, I thought off the turn Sovereignty was in trouble. And it wasn't that I thought Sovereignty wasn't good enough. It's that River Thames was just staying on that well. And I kept waiting for him to fade back and sort of, start to see the inevitable that no matter how much you say it's Gulfstream Speedway, that just from the class of that field and the pace that he was going to fade back. And, to lose to the eventual Kentucky Derby winner, who I had high hopes for, was my top pick by a neck, I think speaks volumes. And then goes to the Bluegrass and stayed right with East Avenue the whole way around. I know Owen Almighty also did, who then faded horribly, and we all said was the pick to finish last, and then of course somehow runs fifth in the Derby. I'll never understand how that happened. But was incredibly game in that race. Keeps Irad aboard. I think he'll get every bit of that 9-2, if not higher. That was, for me, that was my only horse outside of the main 2 or 3 contenders that everybody will focus on. I feel like that the top tier is journalism, then your second tier is probably Sandman and Clever again to most people, and then that next tier is probably goal oriented and River Thames, and it's going to be which one would you have? And for me, I would rather have River Thames for sure. I just think he's more proven. He's incredibly game. I think he has a better chance to get the distance. And he's one I will absolutely, by the way, be using underneath in the exactas. I just feel like he could sit that perfect stalking trip and stay on. And maybe he doesn't get the win, but he doesn't need to win for it to be a solid effort. I think he could stay on.
Okay.
I have one more long shot I'd like to talk about if we have the time.
Oh, right. Let's go.
To the far outside. It's the number 9 Gosgar. Charlie, you and I were at Keeneland this day. This horse ruined our entire tournament dreams and whatever.
Is this a 20-1 shot, by the way?
Yes, 20-1.
So, again, I don't think he can win. I don't think he's going to win this race, but I think he could absolutely get a second or third and spice up the try. I think he's going to get forgotten about. Louis Saez and Brendan Walsh have done absolutely nothing wrong recently. Brendan Walsh is on a heater of all heaters right now. At Churchill Downs during their meet, he's at like 27%. He was somewhere around there at Keeneland. Everything he's running right now is firing lights out. It's a red hot barn. The Lexington Stakes at Keeneland is more of a Preakness prep than it is a Derby prep, even though technically it's the last Derby prep. It's with such short notice. It gives you about 6 weeks though until the Preakness. So I'm big on Gosgar to ride. Going to play some like kind of try keys and whatnot and key him in second and third because I think he has a real shot to spice things up. I love the way he sat behind the pace last time in the Lexington. I don't know the quality of the horses he beat, but I know he did it the right way. Going the mile and a 16th at Keeneland, it's tough to come from off the pace, whether you're a length off the pace, whether you're 8 lengths off the pace. It's tough to close. They have the short stretch there. It typically really only favors those runners up top. But he sat off the pace really well. Irad was on board that day and closed from off of it. They won by 2 lengths. So Luis Saez hops aboard now. In my opinion, that doesn't really change my thoughts at all between Saez and Irad Ortiz. They're both very capable jockeys. If anything, maybe I favor Luis Saez a little more on a runner like this, but that's my own personal opinion. But I think Gosgar, I think Brendan Walsh has been pointing to this race. I think that he's coming in ready to fire a huge shot. And again, the Walsh barn has been on an absolute tear recently. So I want to give this one a look at a big price to round out the try.
And Charlie, the second time I mentioned him, you said you love this.
Yeah, no, this was my other C. This one and River Thames were my 2 Cs. But obviously, when you have a 5-1 horse as a C, it's not a big deal. But a 20-1 you key in on. And this is one absolutely. It killed us in the tournament, but luckily for me, it kind of helped me still have my biggest gambling weekend of my life that weekend because I played him on my tickets because I thought he had an outside shot. This is a horse who on our show Betting and Boozing, we've covered Gosgar in every single one of his career starts, including one he scratched out of. And his debut I thought was incredibly impressive. He hit the gate. He got caught wide. It really didn't look like he had a chance, and he ran on for a game second. Then he comes back at a hot pace and presses the entire way around the track. And I don't care, again, that Gulfstream's your favorite. When you're going 23 and change and then just over 46 for a mile, that's not easy fractions to maintain. And Zayas just looked incredibly confident on him. And then, like Ryan said, when we were watching that race turning for home, I'll be honest, Prater's a horse I get a ton of crap for because I love this horse forever. I thought he was gone turning for home. It was, like Ryan said, it's a short stretch. It helps those on the lead. I had a big exact actually of Prater over Gosgar. I was like, maybe Gosgar gets up for a piece. That would work. And then he got up for more than that. He just goes by Bracket Buster. He goes by Prater, goes by Winning Away. And the other thing, like Ryan said, the key on is Saez and Walsh have both been on fire. This horse is working lights out in the mornings if you look at the workout report. And the other thing I just like is Brendan Walsh. I know we've been saying this a lot, but I really think if you only gave me 2 trainers for in America for who are the best at really putting their horses in the right spot, I'd say it's Bilmont and Brendan Walsh. In my opinion, by far, it's those top two. So if he's sending this horse here, he was asked immediately after he going to the Preakness, and he said he wouldn't commit to anything. He needed to see how the horse came back. The horse has come back working incredible in the mornings. To me, he's only running Gosper here because he thinks he has somewhat of a chance. He doesn't think he has a 20-1 horse in this race. Now, look, I don't think he thinks he has a 5-1 horse, but I think absolutely, to me, I think fair odds on him in this field would be anywhere like 10 to 12 to 1. I do not think he's impossible at all. And I know we touched on everyone besides the 5, Pay Billy. That's just the local horse. Good for him that they're running him here. It's awesome to get some spotlight. That horse has no chance. I thought that we can't say every horse in the field when we leave out one, so I have to say that. But
just in case you did break up a little bit there, which horse has no chance?
Pay Billy, the 5.
There we go.
Who I think is also like the longest shot on the board.
Scratch him from your tickets, though.
Last note on Gosger is Louis Size and Brendan Walsh are 7 for 14 in the last 60 days.
Damn.
So 50%, they are red hot together.
It's like
so
Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore numbers.
Last, though. They're either first or last. They're 50% in the money as well. So they're first or they're off the board. But that's my look for Gosger. So I want to give him.
Okay. Well, he's featuring in the trifecta for me. So I need a trifecta from you, Ryan. I need one from you, Charlie. And ideally, if we could get one that the two of you agree on. So let's see how this goes out. Ryan, you first, your trifecta for the Preakness.
Okay. I'm going to go journalism and clever again in first. And then I will go Gosger in second. And then I'll go journalism. Do journalism, River Thames, and clever again in third. And that'll be my try.
Okay.
So 2-8 with 9 with 2-6-8.
All right. We could do a combination forecast with those 4. So that's clever again, journalism, Gosger, and River Thames?
River Thames, yeah.
Okay. That's your 4 for the combination forecast for us over here. It's just be easier to do. Charlie, for you, your trifecta.
Yeah, I'm fairly similar to Ryan. I don't quite have the stones to put one horse in one of the positions, but I would probably, on my heavier one, I'd just have journalism in first, but I'd also probably realistically, if we're spreading a little more, I'd probably go journalism and clever again on top. And second, I would realistically, again, use journalism, clever again, and probably Sandman. And then third, I would honestly probably just go, I'll key Gosper in third there. That's what I'll do. I'll take a shot with him. But I would say I'd also play one where I'd also key River Thames. I think Gosper and River Thames are two very similar style horses in a positive way, where I think you'll get fair prices. Their game is hell. And I think they both make a ton of sense to just run like that stalking trip where they just stay on for third and everybody's like, who the hell was that horse?
Okay, well, the only one that was different there from Ryan's was Sandman. And so technically you are agreed on the 4, but if you wanted to go really, really big and hope that something insane happens and Sandman is the one who benefits, then put in Charlie's horse as well. Guys, is there anything else on the undercard that we should be looking at? We're looking for winners. It's a Saturday night. No one's doing anything. The sun is shining. We want to try and relax in the sun and then kick back and watch the telly on Saturday night, crack open a few cold ones, betting and boozing. This Charlie's show and your show as well, Ryan, goes by the name of. So what are we betting and boozing on the undercard? Ryan, what have you got for us?
Yeah, actually, I'm going in the race just before the Preakness. So I'm going to play a pretty large double with this horse going into journalism because, again, I think journalism is the most likely winner. But the number 3, Signator, for West Point Thoroughbreds, trained by Shug McGahee. There's currently no listed rider, so hopefully somebody's on his back. But assuming there's a jockey on his back, this horse debuted as a 5-year-old, or not debuted, but came for his 5-year-old season in an optional claiming race down at Tampa, which I know it's Tampa Bay, but it's for turf racing there. It's pretty nice. I think some trainers some of the higher end trainers prefer Tampa over the Gulfstream Park during the winter months. Chad Brown, Shug McGahee, they run a lot of theirs. Christophe Clement, he kind of splits his. But either way, Signator came out to start his 5-year-old season, won an optional claiming race, which is unusual for Shug to win off the bench. This horse was coming off about a 9-month layoff. That's not something he typically does. So for this horse to run really well and to win, that's a positive. Came right back in the Henry Clark Stakes at Laurel Park, up in the state of Maryland, going a mile, won that race as well with the same jockey aboard. That was a stakes race, so past the off Lasix question in terms of turf, but this horse looks like he's kind of turned over a new leaf. He improved his buyer speed figure. He improved his time form a lot, pretty significantly, looking at 11-point improvement there versus 3-point on the buyer scale. But is going to come in here gets the stretch back out to 9 furlongs on the turf for the first time. He's trying the grass in his 5-year-old season, and I think he's going to be a really overlooked horse. 8-1 on the morning line. There's nobody in here that I really love or I think lays over the field, and I think he has a huge shot to jump up on speed figures. The other, morning line favorites in here, I think they're all pretty vulnerable. But it looks like a wide open betting race. I'm hoping I can get 8-1 on Signator because Shug McGahee, I think, could fire a huge effort here on Preakness Day with this runner.
Oh, you have my attention with I'm playing a big double, and then the first leg of it is 8-1. Let's go, right? Charlie, follow that.
Yeah, I might have overachieved here because I have a few plays, but I'll make sure to highlight them pretty quickly. So the first one, maybe the name alone will sort of get people to be interested. So in race number 4, that is the Grade 3 Maryland Sprint Stakes. I have a long shot that I think is at least worth a look at 8-1 Celtic Contender, Sire Irish Warcry, and the damn Celtic Katie. This one's going to be coming from off the pace. There's plenty of pace in this field. Last time out, matched Buyer Tops, which I know is an angle lots of handicappers like 90-90. Ran third in a really weird 3-horse field at Colonial, but lost to Bookham Dano by just 3 lengths, so obviously came back to run Monster. Is working huge in the morning, so I think at 8-1 is certainly worth a look there. Then I'm going to, try to top Ryan here with going with a bit of a longer shot. In race 7, the Grade 3 Gallarette Stakes, I think this field is wide open. There is no one that really stands out to me as someone who has to win here. So I'm going to go with a bit of a bomb here. Ocean Club, the 3-horse again, 15-1 on the morning line with Johnny B aboard. This is one who had, at times when they haven't gone crazy fast, has been brave enough to go on the lead. And I don't think there's a crazy amount of speed in this race. If Johnny B is aggressive here and goes to the front, this is a horse who's been running in Grade 3 after Grade 3 after Grade 3, which not a lot of these others can say. So if you're looking for the, Ocean Club in race 7, I think certainly has a chance there. And then race 11 is my best bet of the day. I'm betting on the 7 Reagan's Wit, who is 5-2 for Cherie DeVoe, West Point Thoroughbreds, Jose Ortiz aboard. Lost by a neck to Zulu Kingdom, who obviously came back to win Derby weekend, then ran a disappointing 4th in the Transylvania as the favorite at Keeneland. Gets back on what should be firm or good turf, which he has experience off both. I think he lays over this field. If I get anywhere near 5-2, I'm going to put an unhealthy win bet on that horse. And then lastly, in the race Ryan touched on, because I do think that's the other big feature race to highlight. My main big doubles I'm going to play are the 10 and 13, Fort Washington and Tricari into journalism. And then my one quote-unquote bomb long shot that I think has to be given a look here. And this is who I thought Ryan was going to go toward when he said he had a price, was Irish Aces. 10-1 on the morning line. Brendan Walsh, who, as we touched on, has been on fire. This is another one kind of similar to my other long shot where he's going to be forwardly placed. And if he gets brave early and can sit close enough to the lead, again, I know, going with a 5-1 and 5-2 with Fort Washington and Tricari into journalism may not pay huge, but if you get Irish Aces at 10-1, and I think you'll get every bit of that into journalism, that's where you can get some real.
I absolutely love this. So 10:52 our time in Britain and Ireland. You've got Signator for Ryan. You've got Fort Washington and Irish Aces for Charlie. Race 4, Charlie's going for Celtic Contender or Celtic Contender, whichever one you want to go for. Let's go Celtic Contender because the Americans are here, shall we? 7:07 Irish time, Ocean Club. 9:53 our time, Reagan's Wit. They are the selections for the team, and you've got the trifecta for the Preakness as well. Guys, I've loved this. I've really, really enjoyed your analysis on the show. I've liked the fact that we've been able to swap this around as well. I've very much enjoyed joining you with Howard for the HHH Racing Podcast for the Breeders' Cup review. I really enjoyed that Saturday morning. I was so tired after Punchestown. I don't have the energy of you young fellas anymore. I was wrecked from just standing around watching racing and doing a little bit of work in the parade ring at Punchestown on the Friday. I was like, oh God, I gotta do this journey show now. This will be a bit of crack. And I loved it. Absolutely. I was buzzing for the rest of the day. So couldn't wait to get the two of you on. Please God, we'll have you on again. Hopefully for the Belmont. I'd really enjoy that if you're both available.
Absolutely. I'd love to join again. Sorry, I was laughing because there's this person army crawling again behind me.
Ryan's girlfriend is very, 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 very polite and doesn't want to crash the live stream.
Doesn't want to crash it. But yes, would love to have you on for Belmont Stakes Festival in a few weeks. And, Royal Ascot's not too far away either. Yeah. So maybe I'll do a show for Royal Ascot and you'll have to join me for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Please, God. Yeah, hopefully we'll be doing a lot of work for TalkSport and, of course, the Final Furlong as well. But absolutely, because you guys are going to have the American contenders coming over. This is the big thing now. So we gotta trade info for that. Charlie, when are we going to see you on a podcast next?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be on a little bit of a hiatus, unfortunately. I'm going to Europe for the first time. I leave for the airport in a couple hours, actually. That's why our show Bet and Boozin', that's normally Wednesdays, was last night to fit it in, which is actually why Ryan's show, Pacific Horse Players, will be tonight. So I will be out for the next 2 weeks. I get back the 29th. But then I'll be back on every Wednesday on Bet and Boozin', part of Howard's HHH Racing Podcast. You can find me on my Twitter at CFree316, though I will warn I'm off the rails with a lot of what I say, but I don't apologize for it either. I'm opinionated. And actually, I'm glad you brought up the Belmont, because me, Howard, Noah, and potentially others are going to be in Vegas for the Belmont, all getting together to have a big weekend there. So I'm sure we would love to try to set up some sort of special episode for and go over the Belmont amongst other races. We absolutely love to do something like that. Would be a great time.
I kind of feel like I want to fly out to Vegas for a degenerate Final Furlong podcast, Triple H Racing Podcast crossover. Try and get somebody to fund that for us, shall we? I was hanging out with Michael O'Leary very briefly the other day. Maybe we can get Ryanair to charter a flight to us for us to Vegas. That'd be class. Where are you going to be in Europe, Charlie?
I'm going to be in England for a few days, mainly just in London. Going to go catch my team Chelsea play against Man United, so hopefully they can get a big 3 points there. And then after that, I will be in Italy for the rest of the trip. And for those who know me, I eat like 2 or 3 foods. So the fact that they have pizza, which is one of my only foods, I couldn't be more excited for. So that's my first trip. But I know at some point I got to get back out there, and maybe I can go to Ireland.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to come to Ireland at some point, mate. We'd love to meet up with you. Ryan, are you going to come into Europe at any time soon?
Nothing in the current travel plans, but when I'm out there, it's going to be for racing. So when I know who to contact when I plan that trip out to Ireland.
I know what we do. We get onto the Irish Champions weekend. We try and fund a trip for you and Charlie to come on over here, and we'll do a full Final Furlong podcast special for them as well. But we need to work out a way. We work out a way to pitch that to the team. And by the way, where's my flight? How do I benefit from that too? Ryan, where are we going to see you? And I know you're going to be part of the Preakness broadcast, but for who and how do we watch you?
Yeah, well, first tonight on HHH Racing, you can catch me, Noah Maher, Jackson Muniz. We're going to be doing our Pacific Horse Players. We're covering the Undercard stakes on Preakness Day this Saturday. Tomorrow on my channel at the Gallop Out on YouTube, going to have 2 shows. We're going to be doing the Late Pick 5 for Black Eyed Susan Day on Friday at Pimlico, and then we're going to be doing the Late Pick 5 for Preakness Day, obviously at Pimlico Racecourse. And then Friday is my travel day. I fly out to Baltimore. Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern through 7 p.m. Through the Preakness Stakes, I will be on ABR Live, which will be on streamed on X, Facebook, probably Twitch, YouTube, through their social media handles. We'll be live on site from the infield at Pimlico, going over all the races in the Late Pick 5 sequence, I think, as well as, of course, the Preakness Stakes. So that'll be on America's Best Racing on all their social media platforms.
Okay, that sells it. That's how we're watching it. We could watch Sky Sports Racing. They're great. If Tom Collins is part of the feature, then that's even better because that guy's absolutely class. But if he's not on, then we're watching America's Best Racing. That's what we're going to do instead. We'll watch there, and we'll tune into Ryan. Boys, looking forward to having you back on the show again soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for setting the tone for us and marking our card for the Preakness. That is your cheat sheet for the 150th running of the Preakness Stakes. I can't wait for it. From Ryan, Charlie, and me, Emmet, thank you for watching. I'm sure you've liked this video by now. Of course you did. There's absolutely no way that you sat through this gold content from Ryan and Charlie and didn't hit the like button at any point, because that would just be incredibly rude and selfish of you to take this for free and not at least hit the like button. You'd never do such a thing. And of course, you've already subscribed to the podcast as well, because you're a nice person. And I can guarantee you it will improve the quality of your life. Not a guarantee, batteries not included. From Ryan, Charlie, and me, take care of yourself. We'll see you again soon on the Final Furlong. God bless.
In horse racing, every furlong matters and every episode counts. So stay ahead of the field by hitting subscribe to the Final Furlong podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. It's free and it gets you one step closer to the winner's enclosure. Subscribe to the Final Furlong podcast and join us on the gravy train.